good evening, and welcome to the last Earth's Mightiest Critics Roundtable Review of 2024. Yes, we are talking about Nosferatu, and it's not live. We would love to join you in person for this show because we love our live audience. However, this movie is not out at the time of recording. We, as highfalutin film critics, had the chance to watch it for awards season, but it actually opens on Christmas Day, and we're recording this before Christmas Day. It's going up after Christmas Day. So we hope you had a wonderful holiday, are looking forward to a great new year. And we thank you for spending the time with us to talk about this movie. Now, briefly, I'll just say that this is my first experience with Robert Eggers because, as I'm fond of saying, God prevented me from watching The Witch 9 years ago in the form of a fire alarm that went off 5 minutes or 3 minutes, something like that, into the screening I was at a local theater. We got the readmit passes, so I went back the next week, different auditorium, different showtime, same situation, fire alarm pulled. And I took that as a sign, and when I got the screener for award season that year, I said, there's no way I'm putting that in my DVD player because I don't want it to catch on fire. So, I missed that. I missed The Lighthouse. I missed The Northman. And when I say I missed The Lighthouse, I can't say I missed it because there's a lot of praise. Eggers, to me, kind of falls into that Ari Aster category, the modern master of like crazy horror movies. And I have seen, I think, all of Ari Aster's films. I remain unimpressed. And so when the same kind of crowd says, you got to check out Robert Eggers, I think, do I? Well, let me just say, I have watched Nosferatu. And tonight we're going to talk about my reaction to it. We're going to talk about the Earth's Mightiest Critics' reaction to this film, a remake of the 1922 Murnau film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. It's been brought into the new millennium with crazy, amazing practical gore effects, incredible ambiance, acting, and and perhaps a new take on the story, and perhaps not. So we're going to get into all that. But who are we? I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the buzzed in front, a.k.a. the blonde in front. We have Santa Critic, a.k.a. Well, no, I shouldn't say. You are Santa. We appreciate you hanging out with us after the holidays, chilling out, watching a movie, talking about it because you had a really busy year. But
I did. The watch list was full, y'all. It's so nice to be done with work, kind of kick back, kick the heels up and do my favorite genre of seductive horror. So, yes.
Well, and I would like to say,
we'll rub one out for this one. You betcha.
Wow. But I will say, Santa, that in the spirit of giving, I'm going to give a shout out to someone who couldn't be here tonight. That's Don Shanahan.
Oh, a nice guy.
Of Every Movie Has a Lesson and Film Obsessive and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. He's great.
I'll let him know you said what's up.
Okay, cool. Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists. Welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
Annie Banks of the Mary Sue and We Got This Covered. Hello.
Hello. I'm still reeling in shock over Santa Critic being so explicit right off the bat.
Hey. It's after December 25th. I can sin for 364 more days. I'm good.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's a movie. Sinner Claus. That's probably... I'll bet Adam and Eve put that out back in the day.
That's the one we need right there.
God.
Good idea.
Yes.
Good idea.
Says the guy who works for a Christian organization.
Well, ancillary company. We're kind of a non-profit on the side. We just give toys away. That's all there is to it. So, I don't know. Jesus is my homeboy, but we're kind of doing our own thing.
Well, and then Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree. Welcome, Mike.
Hello. I'm glad that we can finally hear me.
Yes, for those out there watching,
we're talking about movie.
That's true. We had amazing technical difficulties, as was pointed out to me. This might be another sign from above that I'm not meant to be talking about Mr. Eggers' films because we've had a devil of a time getting this thing going. But we're here now. We're going to talk about this movie. So, Jeff York.
Yes, sir.
Summarize this film for me, please.
The basics of this story. Sure.
Yes.
If you've seen one Dracula movie, you've sort of seen them all, including this one in many regards. The essence of the story is such that, there's sort of two parallel stories, and they just happen to converge into the same married couple. You have Thomas Hutter, who is this very earnest young man who is trying to make it, and he is a realtor, and he has been summoned to basically take care of this purchase of a dilapidated castle in his country by a foreign client who is named Count Orlok, who seems to carry with him some mystery and some danger. The Thomas Hutter character is told to stay away from the castle, but he wants to secure a better life for his new bride and himself. Unbeknownst to him, his new bride has a connection to Count Orlok from years past when she was a young girl and was looking for some sort of spiritual connection, and somehow through the netherworlds of spiritual connections, she was able to connect with this rather unchristian-like sort of demon that was Count Orlok, who is a long-living vampire, and he kind of became obsessed with her. And here it is years later, somehow, maybe because her husband is drawing nearer, they're still connected, and maybe connected even stronger. And she's got dreams about it and hallucinations and all kinds of things. And ultimately, Count Orlok is going to come to Germany in this case, where both of Thomas and Ellen Hutter live, and create more havoc. But first, we have to get Thomas over to Count Orlok, and some shenanigans will happen there, and all kinds of rats and creepy people and terrible things occur. And that's kind of the basics of it. Of course, there are bystanders. There's a Van Helsing character who is named Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz. And that was my best Willem Dafoe imitation, laid on very thick in the characterization or caricaturization. And then you've got a couple of bystanders who only doom can come to them. You have Frederick Harding, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is Thomas's good friend, and his innocent wife, played by Emma Corrin, which is a great waste of her talents in this movie. But we'll get into that more as we go on. And some other people like Simon McBurney, who's kind of in the Renfield role, but here he's called Herr Knock. Why knock? I don't know. Maybe it means night in German, but here it's a kind of a hard knock role, if you will, because he's kind of got the thankless task of eating bugs and throwing up and doing all kinds of terrible things.
And birds. He bites the head off.
That's right. Bites the head off a
right,
bird.
yeah.
And yes, he's got a strange sort of Atkins diet thing going, I think. But there's a lot of bad eating in this. A lot of raw meat, basic chests and hearts and stuff. So that's kind of the basic plot of it. But I'm starting to editorialize, so I'll stop.
Well, no, I mean, that's to your point. I was surprised and not, because I mean, Nosferatu from 22 is sort of the granddaddy of horror movies, and certainly the vampire genre. So when I sat down to watch this, I felt, well, maybe there'll be something new. And there's not a lot new aside from the advancements in filmmaking technology over the past century plus, which is kind of worthwhile. I kept thinking to myself, if this were my first vampire movie, I'd probably be pretty floored. But it's like my 900th, so I'm kind of not. Yeah. Before we get into me listing off the many reasons I was not a fan of this film, and a few for the reasons that I was, mostly in the technical department, I want to kind of go around the room and read the temperature, the blood in the corpse or lack thereof. So, Santa,
oh boy,
you've been good to us this year.
Oh, I try.
Yeah. So,
no, for me,
make of Nosferatu?
Yeah, for myself, for that guy, Don Shanahan and Mrs. Claus, this was, I think I'm kind of on the wavelength where you were, Ian, where the technical things really impressed me and did enough to kind of be a bit of a wondrous appearance to this story that has been told many times, as you said, have it be told with a little bit more vigor and a little bit more pop and a little bit more sensation that can be done with today's tools, and with the grimness and appreciation that Robert Eggers has. When you read some of the background things about where Eggers kind of circled this project for many, many years, you have somebody who was going to honor the subject material, and I can respect that from the filmmaker. This isn't a cash grab or a willy-nilly thing for Robert Eggers. This is a passion project, and you can see that on the screen with the way he kind of went about it and put his heart and soul and production value into it. At the same time, it's still just a difficult movie where you have just. It's still just, this is cold as ice, despite all the heat that we're talking about in terms of, danger and things like that. There's part of me, part of Mrs. Claus and part of Don, that kind of prefers the hotter and hornier and sillier Coppola stuff to this, because at least you're kind of like, when you kind of get to that level of obsession that's going on, the verbiage of obsession that permeates this film, where the dialogue is obviously more present here than in 1922, where you speak this out as much as you act this out. I kept kind of going back to Coppola, where I was like, give me that Wojciech Collier music, give me the hot and bothered Gary Oldman, and like really make it kind of, I don't know if you want to go sexy, but horny, because hey, you need that. Where this was a tough one to kind of go, where's the draw there, other than obviously the mental control that Orlok has over our young lady. So it's impressive to watch. It was atmospheric to no end, of course, because production value is off the charts. But I don't know, kind of that next level fervor and heat that we're talking about from a temperature was lacking. So I stayed very chilly in the North Pole watching this one. So yeah.
That might not have just been the North Pole, sir, because I watched this at home, like on my laptop.
Yeah.
And I still had a blanket wrapped around me. I mean, I'm in a cold basement, but it does have that feeling. It is, rather amazing that I got the chills watching this movie. But I also think it's cold in many other ways, which I don't think are necessarily helpful to the viewing experience. But Katie, jump in here.
I agree at certain points with Don and Jeff. I especially agree with the acting parts that Jeff kind of alluded to. I was in for this film like an hour in. I thought cinematography, music, even the acting with the entire cast. I thought they committed to the roles. They committed to that dialogue. I love that Eggers. I mean, I was writing down words, and I did do the closed captioning when I did it on my laptop, because I'm like, some of these things I don't know what they are. I'm like, I'm going to look these up. Like, not to say I'm dumb, but I'm like, this is like old 17th, 18th century English that I'm like, I am not going into. But I love the way that everyone committed to what it was, and it felt very natural up until you got to the part with Willem Dafoe. And for me, he took me out of the entire freaking film. I don't know if it's the age. I don't know. To me, it's like his worst performance I think I've ever seen him in.
Wow.
Yeah. There's
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's a high bar.
There's certain points where I think, there's some monologues where I was like, okay, I'm getting back into it. But then he went and did something that I'm like, I'm not buying any of this. Like, any of what you're saying, any of the your talent, like, you are better than this, and you've completely ruined the movie for me. I do think it's going to be a front runner for cinematography. I think it's going to be a front, if not the winner for cinematography. It is just picturesque and just amazing. I think it's Lily Rose's best performance to date. Let's see. I think the music is fantastic. I honestly do think this is going to be an awards contender in many categories. Whether it's a winner or not, I don't know. It would have been in my top 10 if Willem Dafoe, or they had recasted Willem Dafoe's character, because it just honestly just was abhorrent. But I like the fact that they are making more of these vampire films that aren't the sexy, Twilight or something like that. I like the fact that Bill Skarsgård, from the beginning, and I've seen him do interviews where he made sure that that voice that he had, and from day one, he had that, was from his gut, so he didn't ruin his throat, and it just came naturally to him. I like that Count Orlok isn't this I like the fact that he's not like a Gary Oldman or a Jerry Dandridge or, like sexy vampires. It's like, he's supposed to be a monster. He's supposed to be this creature from, Satan and hell. And the makeup effects in this is absolutely incredible. Definitely a huge contender for the Oscar, if not other ones. And and we've talked about this on other panels, this is one of those movies, though, that you don't see. They use actually real animals, which I know I've kind of brought up that fact in different things. And this is kind of a big deal for movies to be using actual animals anymore. And in every aspect they did, in fact, to the point where they're kind of getting in trouble. But at one point it was very Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, with the you open up a door and it's just filled with rats, and those are actual rats that a number of those actors are still traumatized from, because it was like 1,000 rats, like not being, not kind of like, oh, it's 1,000. Like, no, it was actually probably more than that. And I have to give Eggers credit for that he's not, just trying to go with CGI and stuff like that. That's a bold move. I think it's well directed. I think, again, I love the way that he used the Old English, and I would have given this more praise if it wasn't for Willem Dafoe just completely taking me out of it. In fact, I was livid in the theater when he started talking, and I wrote down, what the hell is this? Like, I mean, as soon as he opened his mouth, I was like, this sounds like he just got the sides, like the day before or that hour. It's like, okay, and here you go, and go. Like, there was nothing in it. I don't believe that he's supposed to be Ralph Iverson's professor. I don't believe that he's like, I don't know. There's something about it that I think it was like a miscasting. Like, if he had been like maybe 80 years old or something, or just older, there's just something about it that just completely threw me off, and that just pissed me off for the rest of the movie. So, yeah, I do think a lot of people are going to like it. I don't think they're going to be as upset as I am about Willem Dafoe's performance, because, I mean, obviously I'm very mad about it. But I think there are definitely more aspects of it that, take away that performance that should be celebrated, and I guarantee they will be.
Yeah, well said. I'm the black hole of a performance for me was not Willem Dafoe. While I agree, I didn't particularly dig his character, but we'll circle back to that. Mike, jump in.
So I watched this movie twice, and
Twice.
yeah, because I saw it once, like during the whole awards thing, and I liked it a lot, but then I wanted to see it again to see if I liked it a lot. And the second time I saw it, I still did like it, but I felt like it was sort of missing an element of heart that it very forcibly kind of put in at the last ending of the film, where all of a sudden Dracula is supposed to have feelings, and you're like, wait, where's this coming from? Because, I mean, I read the book years ago. I mean,
Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I've read it. I've read Dracula many years ago, so my memory's a little foggy on it. But I know in the Coppola film, Mina, which Lily Rose's character, I don't know what it's named. I just remember them. Yeah, Ellen. Yeah, I love the fact that Robert Eggers is changing everyone's name as if it's a different role, but really it's essentially the same role that they had in the book and in the short or the silent film and all that. But anyways, it was just kind of like a cheap thing to do.
Well, there's a history of this, because the original, this is something I was reading up on after I finished the film, because I haven't seen the original Nosferatu in a long time, but in 22, when this film came out in Germany, it was kind of a bit of an independent, kind of a small film that was meant for a German audience. But the Stoker estate got wind of it, and there was a giant lawsuit, and all prints of the film were ordered destroyed.
Wow.
Now, there were a few that were not. They were kind of secreted away, and that's why we've been able to appreciate the restoration and things like that. But this was an off-brand adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so the names are different, but the situations are very similar, which is why we're going to be having Deja Vu talking about this versus Bram Stoker's Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Which, Coppola's version isn't that accurate, because the thing with Ellen, Mina, tomato, like it's what's this huge love story? She was basically just someone that he terrorized, and she wanted to go away. And they kind of more faithfully do that in this one, where like Ellen knows what she has to do in order to like stop the monster from doing his path of destruction. Although I felt like that was kind of illogical in some ways. Like when we'll get into spoilers later, but when they were when one scene was happening with Willem Dafoe's character, where he's basically like kind of saying manipulating our other characters into thinking something else.
Hmm.
We kind of go, well, yeah, they all had a point. Why did he even do that? And why did Dracula show up when he did? Or I'm sorry, Count Orlok. And
You can call them whatever you want. They're the same character.
yeah, I know. But it's like it had some of those illogical scenes, but otherwise, like, this is a movie that has to feel like the book, and I felt like this is the closest thing I've ever felt with when it came to actually feeling like when you read the book. I mean, still faithful where it looked a little silly. Like, I thought Dracula looked a little bit like Dr. Eggman with the big mustache and everything, but I mean, he
looked like a WWE wrestler almost.
Oh yeah, especially like in the one
the big
scene
fur
where he's in
coat,
the
like you
buff.
expected him to come out and
Well-
like take the fur coat off and show his
Yeah,
muscles.
he was approaching. Yeah, he was like the Undertaker. It was weird.
Yeah, exactly.
You know who he was? He was
tell.
he was Rasputin from Hellboy from 20 years ago.
Oh gosh,
Yep.
right?
Shaved
Oh,
head,
man.
giant bushy beard,
Yeah,
wants to be
yeah.
resurrected, and all this other
Mhm.
crazy occult
Good
stuff.
pull.
And that's why one of the many, I guess, nitpicks I had with this film, the original Nosferatu is the Orlok from that is so iconic and so otherworldly. I mean, Toby Hooper used that as the basis for Salem's Lot.
Right.
So when I'm seeing this, I'm not expecting an exact recreation, but I'm expecting something other than, to your point, Mike, Dr. Eggman. I kept waiting for the monster to be revealed, other than the extra long fingers and things like that. But it just wasn't scary to me. He just seemed like a really creepy old guy with leprosy, rather than someone who's been around and dancing with Satan for centuries. But I'm sorry, Mike. Finish up your summation. I keep interrupting.
I felt like this was the closest thing that you felt to when reading the book. It captured the mood. It captured, the intimacy of it, I guess you could say, and it also made it much more insane and over the top in terms of some of the things that happen, where it's kind of shocking that they went there, and at the same time you're kind of going, is it right that they went there? But but I think this one was probably one of my more favorable adaptations of the book, and it's a pretty creepy horror film. Although, like, I wasn't completely sold on Dracula, he's still, like, the second time I saw it, I appreciated the look a lot more, especially that final shot of him in the movie.
Oh, we'll talk about that. Yeah. My gosh. But before we do, Annie, jump in.
Annie, jump in. Annie is the resident Romanian. Annie is the resident Transylvanian.
Ooh.
Yeah, I actually had the privilege of knowing my great grandmother, who was a Transylvanian immigrant. Unfortunately, the Romanian and everything was lost on me, but my dad is very, very Romanian. My grandfather was very Romanian. So, my culture is not your costume, Roger Eggers. At the same time, I went in completely blind. My first impression of Nosferatu was from SpongeBob, when the original Nosferatu was featured at the end of an episode. And that was really it. And then, Bram Stoker's Dracula and all that, and other iterations and everything else. But I was very intrigued to see what the actual rehash of Nosferatu would be like. And I went in bat blind. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into outside of a few still images and familiarizing myself with the cast. I want to like it a lot. I liked it to an extent. I think this was a great thriller. I think it was very creepy and very atmospheric. I wouldn't call it a horror. I was hoping to be more scared. I was hoping to be more frightened. I was really hoping that this would just set off a really uneasy tick in me. And I think that there's a lot of beautiful energy put in the atmosphere of the movie, the use of color, the overall tone. I love a good Victorian thriller. And I think that Eggers is really great at Victorian thrillers, or thrillers in general. I wouldn't say this is a typical horror movie. I think this is a goth person's idea of a Christmas movie. As someone who is occasionally goth, all my alternative friends are like, I'm so excited. I'm like, guys, this is for you. So they're very excited about it. And the marketing knows its market. I don't know where I sit on some performances. The whiplash of Aaron Taylor Johnson going from Kraven the Hunter to this, I was like, whoa.
He gets the award for most improved. I know, I don't know what sequence, but just in the course of this week, yes. Wow.
Yeah. Willem Dafoe, William the Friend, I love you dearly. You're just out here rocking a really fun transatlantic accent, which I advocate should make a comeback tomorrow. I will die on that hill. I love the transatlantic accent, but if that's all you're bringing to the character, I don't know. Nicholas Hoult, I love him because he always looks like he was just told that he has to wake up in a cold sweat in every scene. And not even in this movie. And like everything that he's worked on within the last 10 years, he always looked like they pulled him out of like a gulag and he's reading his lines for the first time. It's awesome. But I think he was excellent. And Lily Rose Depp is just outstanding. I from the body horror of this and the intensity of the possessions. Are we talking spoilers?
We are now.
We might.
I think we have.
I mean, I don't know how you can spoil this movie because
that's
like
true.
every other movie.
The intensity of the physical or I was gonna say orgasms, physical possessions that she's going through. How just like with the eyes rolling in the back of the head and the foaming at the mouth. I thought the practical work on this film was outstanding. I love the reliance on practicality and the costume design and the set design and everything here. I like that there wasn't a trade-off. Okay, hey, we're revamping this original horror movie, but we're also going to revamp it with modern technology. No, at the same time, I think some of the subplots lost me. I couldn't get behind the friend with the daughters. I thought, not to pick on child actors, they took me out of it. The two little girls took me out of it. Willem's subplot, I think, lightened the mood a little bit. I was just kind of like, that's Willem Dafoe. I'm fond of him. And then that was it. Like, I was like, that's cool. To kind of side with Katie, where he's delightful, but I think he was too cheerful in this. At the same time, I really do admire the effort to do something memorable and original and exciting and engrossing with such a classic title, especially now that we are so immersed in the age of everything being a remake or reboot or sequel. Or prequel, and we've really cursed ourselves with the concept of readapting things that don't need to be readapted. I think this was a really strong contender for readaptation, and I'm impressed with how it was executed.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. Jeff, I want to get to your kind of reaction, but I think it was your social media reaction or something. But something you said struck me. That this wasn't scary. It's a horror film, or it pretends to be one, but there's nothing really scary about it. It's got atmosphere, but there's no like shock factor. There's nothing that you're going to come away from like, wow, I was really scared by this vampire movie. And I'm finding that is a problem that I have with vampire movies in general. I think they tend to lean on the romance and stray away from the horror. And so, yeah, can you expand on that a bit and kind of like wrap that into your thoughts?
Sure. I mean, I think part of it is, and maybe this is, somebody who's like you, Ian, and probably Don, and seen 900 of these things, so it's a little bit hard to sort of get us with just the premise alone, because it isn't enough. We've been there, done that so many times. But I found that there was very little real plotting to this and very little characterization to this. I think everybody is almost playing precisely one emotion. To Annie's point about Nicholas Hoult, he's playing naive terror, and he never plays anything other than that. Aaron Johnson is just like, how dare you?
Bluster. Yeah.
He's just plain bluster and nothing else. Emma Corrin, you take her as one of the best actresses of her generation, and she's window dressing there to be the final victim and the kids with it's utterly silliness. They're not even playing characters, they're playing types or tropes. And I think because of that, I'm not invested in these people, and so I'm not afraid for them. There's nothing there to be afraid for. And I also dare say, and I'm going to give an example to sort of go with what you're asking me, Ian, and that is, how is it scarier? I think it is scarier with not only better characterizations, better plotting, some true genuine surprises and stuff, but I think what makes Dracula work, and made it work on the page, and it's only been worked well, I think in a couple of executions really, really well. And that is, I think you have to be in the situation with these people like, what the hell's going on here? I'm not quite sure I know. And I'll give you an example of it. I'm going to recommend this to your audience as well, and anybody who's a horror fan. I think it's actually for free on YouTube. But there was a 77 version from England that starred Louis Jourdan and was shot on video. And it was so scary because the way they did it, and they're very loyal to Bram Stoker's original book, is he's a count and he's elegant. And he brings this man over because he's a rich count and he's Louis Jourdan. So Louis Jourdan's like, I will not have dinner with you, but I will invite you to enjoy my wine and this kind of stuff. And so, okay, this guy seems like a good guy. And then he starts to get a little sinister. And the character of Harker is like, is this guy just eccentric, or is he, sort of screwing with me, or should I be afraid? And then he thinks he sees these vampire brides of Dracula, but he's not sure because am I drunk? Am I just tired from the trip? And then there's this one great moment. I don't know if you remember this, Don, but where he hears this knocking about outside his window, and he's discombobulating, and he opens up the window and he sees Dracula going like kung, kung, kung down the side of the wall, like he's just moving, like he's parallel to the side. And they did that because they didn't have the money to have him fly and all these other things for this budget. But it was like, he's terrified. And I was terrified too. It's like, I'd never seen that before. And I'd seen all the Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing stuff and some other things. But I think this is in the ultimate evaluation of this. I agree with almost everything that everybody said. It wasn't scary to me. It seemed like it was an exercise in style more than anything. It's so well done. It's beautifully well done. But I think Robert Eggers has a big issue on his hand, and that is he going to continue to write poorly or obviously or blandly, or is he going to be, a guy who knows how to write and then brings that really good script to life? Because right now I think he's starting to push these well, he wrote all of them or not, but these scripts that are subpar, but they look fantastic.
Right.
If this had a great script, show me something else with Harker. Don't cast Nicholas Hoult. We've seen him play that role already in Renfield. Why cast him again? Why cast Willem Dafoe to play basically the same kind of comical kook that he played in what was the thing? The one?
Poor Things.
Poor Things, excuse me. I was going to say Pretty Things. Poor Things.
Even Kinds of Kindness. Like
exactly. He's played these kind of characters before. Cast it different, write the character different. I would argue as well, one of the reasons that Willem Dafoe doesn't work in this character, he has no reason to be there. The best thing that character brings to the party is like, take her out of her corset. She's a woman. She's not an animal on a leash.
He's an exposition dump. That's all he
doesn't chase. They don't chase the vampire. They don't have a big scene where they're attacked by him and they come back and go for him. They don't even have a staking in it. I mean, what is Eggers thinking? That isn't even revisionist. It's like, you think this is so good? Yes, we worry about 1,000 real rats running around everywhere. We've got rat wranglers. We don't have a script person who goes like, you know what? We haven't ever had these people actually confront Dracula. He just comes all the way over the thing, ruins the ship, attacks a couple people there, and then aims right for Lily Rose Depp. What? Huh?
Yeah, well,
I've invested an hour and a half in that for that. Where's the action? Where's the staking? It's just, there's no reason for Willem Dafoe's character to exist in this. And to Katie's point, he completely takes you out of the picture because he's brought in to be comic relief, which we don't need, because I think you get that with Eric Taylor Johnson's bluster. But he's not there to be the man who knows everything and is going to be the conquering hero who says, now we must, kill him and all that stuff. By the way, Frank Finlay plays him. A very British character actor known in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Plays him in the Louis Jourdan version, and he's terrific. He's knowing, he's scientific, but he's also like, this is how it is, and you're going to put a stake through his heart. Now, that may sound absurd, but this is how it's done because I've done it.
Well,
and it works.
It's tangible and topical. Like, you're driving a stake through somebody's heart. Like, it's dramatic.
Right,
and
it is.
There's a lack of that outside of all the atmosphere here. That Jordan one is on YouTube, and I put the link in the chat. For
I love that. Thank you.
Cool.
The one last thing I'm just going to say, and that is, I was a big Skarsgård fan. I think the Skarsgård acting family is a pretty impressive one. I can't believe you would cast Bill Skarsgård in this and bury him under so much makeup that it could have been Martin Short underneath there.
Oh, I know.
There was nothing that suggested to me that was Bill Skarsgård. His eyes, his charm, he has a sort of cheekiness to him. There was no humor in that character. In fact, we barely saw him, which was also weird. So I don't know, just a number of things like that made me as angry as Katie was at Willem Dafoe. And they're like, how can you spend this money on this great looking film, these costumes, these hairstyles, this cast, and then you give them no roles to play or cliches to play, and you are so lacking in action and frights. That's almost the biggest shock of this movie to me, was that there were no shocks.
And one further was I had trouble understanding what Orlok was saying some of the time. I was like, wait, that's not
too dedicated to the old language, right?
Well, help me out. How could you have trouble understanding what he's saying? He gave you plenty of time. The guy has 20 lines in this movie, and each one takes a minute. You will come to.
I know, it's like, and why would you run right away when you hear somebody talking to you like that?
Yep.
Where with Louis Jourdan, it's like, hey, I would sit and listen to him talk for an hour. He's an interesting person.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to be Gary Oldman. Like the Coppola film.
Watch the Louis Jourdan one. Right? You're too young to have known it, but you got to watch.
I want to see that wall crawling scene.
Oh, it's great.
Katie, you wanted to say something?
Yes. One of the things is that from the get-go, I like with the film, you have Ellen, who you can tell is supposed to be a younger woman than she is as the film gets. So to me, she's kind of like a child. She's definitely in her teens. And then you've got Orlok coming in. So then it's kind of like got this pedo moment to it. So that didn't necessarily scare me. That was more scaring me, that it's like, who is this guy that's creeping on this child? But also she obviously has some sort of magical ability. Then, but what really took me out of the frightening part and was more just like, Jesus, really, this is how we did things, was when the doctor came in and they're talking about how, to cure the afflictions of Ellen. It's like, well, she's got too much blood, so let's let it out. And obviously the menstruation is coming, and let's put the corset in, and then let's do this. And I'm like, and this is how real medicine was on women. So that's awesome. That was more frightening to me than anything regarding the vampire aspects of it or Orlok in itself. I also thought that if you're going to, and I have not read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I know I need to, especially after Voyage of the Demeter, because I know it's only 5 pages. Although I do think that section that they had where they went in and out with the natural light, and that's another chef's kiss with this film that they've used. But
that was
when
a highlight.
You saw Orlok, but then it's like the crew member didn't. To me was like, that was probably the scariest moment in the film. To me. And then I forgot what else I was going to say. There was something else, but I'm blanking. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Those are good comments.
That scene on the the Demeter, and I think one of the things that's working against this film for me personally, and it's not fair to Eggers or anybody else involved in the production, is that 6 months ago we did have Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I did not think was a good film for a number of reasons, kind of like this one, but I do think it had a lot going for it in terms of the atmosphere. That's another. It felt like you were out at sea with these folks and kind of trapped. I did appreciate that, but I like what they did with the ship here. That scene where the guy goes into the hold and he's gonna rip open the casket and take care of business, and you see Orlok behind him. I thought it was a missed opportunity because it's kind of vague with the lights and his body is all kind of screwed up. I thought, well, maybe the audience thinks that they're seeing him behind him, but he turns around, it's just a bunch of like wrinkled curtains, because that's essentially what his body looks like. That little bit of misdirection, but it turns out it was just him the entire time. I gotta go back and disagree with the panel on two key points, both having to do with performance. One, I really liked Aaron Taylor Johnson in this movie as a character. I think he is the bluster guy, but he does go through changes. He's the kind of the good old boy, cigar smoking, in the parlor kind of dude. But he loves his daughters. He loves his wife. He's excited because they're expecting a child, and this might be a boy. but he's very, very much, and he's a successful businessman, but he's not the kind of successful businessman we usually see in these kinds of movies where he's all about the money and the greed and forget everybody else. To the end, he cares the most about his family. And I think that scene where he goes into the crypt and he's like laying on his wife and it's all very sad. I was a bit confused because what happened there? It looked like he had come down with the plague because he had those marks on him. He's spitting up blood. But then I'm also thinking, well, is his wife a vampire? Is she going to attack me? Because the peanut gallery shows up later and they set the bodies on fire. I don't know if that's because they're afraid they're going to come back or if it's because of the plague or both. It was very unclear to me.
No, and thank you. That was the part that I had forgotten and then remembered, because I know we're sticking with the book and I'm not sure exactly what happened with the book, but I thought that was a missed opportunity. If you're going to kind of stray from the book, that I thought maybe his wife and children would have like been vampires or something, because I know with different aspects, but it seemed like everyone just got the plague or got bitten by Orlok, and then that was it. Also, that's a really quick turnaround for them to be killed that night and then in the ground the next morning. I mean, real quick for those 7 8
And how hungry is Orlok when at that point he eats 2 kids and a wife?
Mm-hmm. To be full. He is
shit, he just got off the ship. He just got off the ship.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, I mean, it's a missed opportunity because, you know, we see the kids' the coffins. You know, it's really, I have unfortunately had the experience of attending the funeral of a small child. And it is a striking moment to see the miniature coffin. It is, that is genuine real life horror. In this movie, you do see these, you know, lovingly crafted wood coffins that are kind of marched out, but, you know, through the graveyard. But it's just kind of like, yeah, we're in the point where we're rushing towards the ending. This movie is 2 hours long, and it crams all of the action and forward momentum into the last 20 minutes when it should be taking the time to breathe to make us feel things. Most of this film is people lying in bed having convulsions. Now, this is the second point of contention where I'm ready, bring it on, okay? I think Lily Rose Depp is terrible in this movie. And I think I am willing to put that down to the screenplay.
Naughty list for you, young man. Naughty list for you.
Santa, come on. I already got the coal in my stocking. You can't do anything to me. I have another 363 days to redeem myself. Sir.
All right. But for now, it's an erasable pen, buddy.
Look, here's the thing.
Fire.
Look, I'm willing to put this down to the screenwriter, who is also Robert Eggers. I want to say David Eggers, the author, but the thing is about her character. Yes, she's very good at writhing around, foaming at the mouth, having these seizures and everything. But I am wondering, okay, what else is there? What does this have to do with anything? How many scenes do I have to watch of her looking sickly? I mean, she has one expression during the entire film, this like weird, fish-eyed, I'm not quite Wednesday Addams looking up into the camera.
Oh dear. He went there.
Or she's crying or screaming or throwing up or whatever she's doing. Also, warning sign, folks, the big still that's going around that shows her like bleeding from the eyes and the mouth and everything, that is literally a half a frame of her like waking up from a dream that she had a vision of. That's not like a big thing in the movie.
That's called marketing, Ian.
That sells tickets, man.
That's called marketing, and that's why I
understand.
You don't
but
buy
if you want
that stuff.
No,
because the moment you watch the trailers and you're like, whoa, did you see that flash frame, that 1 second still? That's crazy, because that's one of the stills that I saw. I was like, all right. And I didn't think anything else of it because I know how well that these marketers can target their audiences through shock marketing.
Annie, I understand.
With this crying and screaming, but name another actress who can bring that level of intensity and carry that immense. I'm sure it's got to be painful if you are forcing yourself to cry and scream and throw up and convulse for hours, for months.
This is what I'm getting at in terms of the screenplay, because yes, she's talented, and I probably could name because yes, it requires commitment, but it's not like it is an extraordinary feat to do that if you are a professional actor who is asked to do that. Now, my problem comes down to the story. Again, She's going through all of this. Why? It's that whole thing, and we find this out way late into the film, that she has a psychic connection to Orlok, but it was a psychic connection that goes back a long time, and it was broken when she met the guy who would become her husband, but it's still there, but it's not quite strong until it is strong, and he approaches her to say, you need to willingly give yourself to me in order to fulfill some prophecy or destiny, and you have to do it of your own free volition, but if you don't, then I'm going to kill everybody you love and all of, Germany. So that's not exactly a free will kind of situation. Sure. It's all a mess. I don't find her to be particularly inspiring. I mean, I didn't think Winona Ryder was that great in Bram Stoker's Dracula, but in terms of the characterization, that version of Mina Harker versus this Ellen, there's just nothing there. She's a Funko Pop who throws up a lot.
I think part of the problem, though, the real emphasis, though, is on the screenwriting. She is sick for most of the movie, so we don't get to see her really as a likable, lovable, wonderful character other than maybe the first 10 minutes. And then she's kind of pouting because she doesn't want her husband to go away. And then after that, she's lost to, the infection, if you will. But I think what you're really saying ultimately is, I think it's, again, that script problem, because the balance is off. There's too much front loaded. It takes its time. My God, how much time do they have with him watching those dancers, the gypsies and stuff? Why are we seeing any of that? Who cares? Except that maybe those people are going to be the ones who nurse him back to health because they know the bad castle. But you're right. It's all the backloading was. I think it was faster than 20 minutes. I swear to God, it was 10. It felt like it was so jammed that. And then Emma Corrin doesn't do anything for literally an hour and a half of the movie. And then finally, she does one thing where she goes to bed at night with Ellen, has one nice conversation where they're good friends, and that's it. Now she's got to die. I mean, that's bad screenwriting. There isn't a teacher in the country who would say that's how you develop a character, by giving her nothing to do until 10 minutes. Then you develop her character, and then she's killed off. That's such bad writing.
Let me answer Annie's question with something you just brought up, Jeff. Emma Corrin could have done the Lily Rose Depp part. Aisling Franciosi, who was in Last Voyage of the Demeter, she could have done that part in her sleep, because if you've seen The Nightingale, you know that she can go to places that let me reframe my criticism of Lily Rose Depp. It is mostly to do with the screenplay and what she's asked to do. She does it very well, but again, it's so much of what she does in the film that I'm left to wonder, how hard is she trying? She feels like this is my chance to get an award or get recognition for how great an actress I am. I'm not just Johnny Depp's daughter. And there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I appreciate that. It's really good, but your character is crap. Now, what I think would make
that sounds like more of a direction issue, then, does it not? If she's being directed a certain way, I said that sounds like more of a direction.
Well, it's
direction screenwriting than it is performance, because you can only perform as well as you are directed.
It's a screenplay and a performance issue. And I would say that, it's what she was hired to do. So yes, perhaps it's unfair, but every time she came onto the screen and did nothing different than what I'd seen her do for the previous hour, I'm like, you are boring. Let's move on. Now, I will say that one of the things that I would like to see in any one of these vampire movies, because after this movie, I'm kind of done with Dracula. I'm done with Nosferatu.
Except for the Louis Jourdan version.
I'll have to check that out. But, one of the tropes, one of the through lines to this, and it happened in Fright Night, right, is the whole idea of the centuries-old love. The vampire who's in quote-unquote modern times finds someone who reminds him of an old flame, and he wants to rekindle that. And sometimes it is a direct spiritual connection or whatever. I want to flash back to see that romance. I want to see how how could someone fall in love with the monster? Was he a monster, or was he turned into something? A real kind of Anakin Skywalker kind of situation who became a vampire and caught up with Padme's ghost, 7 centuries later. Because in all of these adaptations, I'm left wondering, why would she, fall in love with this guy? Because he is, he rips the throats out of, men, women, and children. The other thing that I think was a missed opportunity, I understand it's an adaptation of previous source material, but when we see, and it's not called the Demeter in the film, but we assume that it is, it's destroyed, and all these rats are coming off of it. vampires are well known for transforming into creatures. I thought that would have been interesting if the plague that's being brought to Visburg is vampirism.
Mhm.
You know, what if our trio at the end of, the heroic trio, they're going after Count Orlok to destroy his coffin and all that stuff inside the house that he purchased. What if they have to fight their way through an entire city that's been infected by rats, essentially like the climax of Salem's Lot, where the entire town has been turned into these blood-sucking creatures? That would have been, yes, not adaptation, but it would have been something kind of different than what we've seen from this story. And the last thing
Can you
I'll
imagine
say,
that visual would have been exciting if you'd see like even 100 rats in a room suddenly become humans,
But kind
vampires.
of like Life Force in the
Yeah,
19th.
exactly.
Yes.
That's right.
All
That
of
would have been,
London
that.
That would've been
is
very
infested with
scary.
vampires.
this movie needed a Life Force climax. Thank you. That sounded really weird.
Depends on what part of Life Force you're watching, buddy. Hey.
Any part.
Hey, are we going back to the future now? This is the perfect return to
Which one? One or two? No, or three. No, so yeah, it's I don't know. There's just, I feel like, unfortunately, this is sort of the best technologically realized version of this story that I think we've ever had.
Yeah.
But it also underscores sort of the fundamental weakness of keep trying to adapt the same thing. I've been watching a lot of Hammer horror films in the last, half decade for the series, Hammerland and all of its various spin-offs. And I will take the worst of those Dracula vampire movies over this pretty much any day. In terms, and you can say that with those movies they're cheesy, if they're from the 60s and 70s, yes, but they also had the 60s
Thrills,
and 70s equivalent of the Robert Eggers production design, and characterizations. I mean, Christopher Lee was pretty cool as Dracula, and in the times when he was given more room to speak and emote and act, because in some of those films he was contractually obligated. He said 2 lines because he wanted to be done with it. But Peter Cushing, whether he's playing Van Helsing or if he's playing his brilliant demented version of Dr. Frankenstein, he brought so much life to the hero and villain side of those characters that it's fun to watch these horror movies, which are in parts genuinely scary, always give you a lot to think about coming out of the experience, but also you get this rich experience of a protagonist / antagonist who has a spirit, a life behind the eyes that is missing from just about everybody in this movie, Nosferatu 2024.
That's why I'm taking Coppola. It just has the sizzle everywhere. Even in the bad acting of Reeves and even the hit or miss acting of Ryder, you're still like, there's drive, there's passion, there's still scares. Like it's just, I hear you.
Well, I will say I was kind of disappointed because like 20 minutes into this, we do have the convulsions and the setup and everything. But when I'm just going to call him, I was going to say Jonathan Harker, but Hunter, right? He goes to Nicholas Holt's character goes to Transylvania, meets up with Count Orlok in his castle, and there's some really great nightmare dream sequence stuff of him sitting like by the fireplace, and he's sitting at a table and the Count invites him over by the fireplace, and he turns his head and realizes, wait, I'm already sitting by the fireplace. All this really weird, trippy playing with time and space, that's all gone after that sequence. Then it just becomes your pedestrian, okay, now we're back to watching people get sick in bed again, and there's a funeral, and now we got to go to keep the coffin from, keep the vampire from returning to his coffin. The imagination and the true weird intensity of that early scene is just, it's gone. I wanted more out of that the rest of this 2 hours.
Fair.
Anyway, that has been Nosferatu 2024. No, does anybody have any final thoughts or anything that we haven't really touched on here?
Well, I think there's a lot of this film that honestly reminds me of Rumpelstiltskin, because the way Ellen is at the beginning and throughout the film, how they talk about her mental affliction and the different aspects that she has. It's when she's calling out she's just calling out to the universe. It's not necessarily Orlok, but she's calling out because she feels like she's completely alone. She has no one. She has this special gift, like fairy-like powers and all that stuff. And Orlok hears it and reciprocates. And then, you know, come 10 years later, because it can't be too long, and she's like found Thomas, but it's like Rumpelstiltskin. It's like, look, I let you have your heyday. You made a bond with me. I'm coming up to, you know, claim what that bind was, even if you were like 12 or 13, who cares? Now I'm, you know, gonna collect. And the fact is, like, all right, fine. I don't want to collect. And then she starts freaking out again. And then when she realizes, like, the only way and I do feel bad for Anna, because Anna is the only one that has her back. I know you say she's like that. You're talking about how she's like a wasted role. She's like Ellen's girl. Like, she's like, look, I adore her. I love her. Friedrich's like, get this bitch out of my house. I'm paying for everything. I know that Thomas is my friend, but she needs to go. Anna's the only one who actually has her back. And it's very disappointing, the fact that Orlok's like, I'm going to let everyone you love die, and then your husband. And she lets Anna die. Like, Ellen kind of sucks. But at the same time, she realized, like, all right, so that my husband doesn't die and the rest of Germany, I'm going to have to give him the only thing that I have that he wants, which is, you know, my baby making ability, and it's not going to happen, but I'm going to make sure that he lays with me. He doesn't do anything else. And the end, I save the day. So it is I realize it is kind of like a Rumpelstiltskin kind of thing. Like, she makes a deal with the devil. She kind of has to pay up in the end to get what it is, and that's what happens. And then you get a crappy performance from Willem Dafoe, and scene.
Well, Kitty, I'm glad you reminded me of this, because this is something from the original Nosferatu that gets completely convoluted here, and it didn't need to be. In the original version of the story or the film, I haven't watched it in probably 15 years, but the Ellen equivalent in that movie learns that if someone willingly offers himself up to Count Orlok, then it'll break the curse and save everybody, and basically they'll both be damned, but everyone else will be set free.
Mm-hmm.
She just finds this out and makes the decision to save everyone. They don't have this whole like convoluted, oh, we used to know each other, we've got this psychic bond and all this other stuff. It's just kind of garbage, because it just raises too many questions for a movie that's not really about that. We get all of that in exposition that's kind of cut up and peppered throughout the film, where you get the feeling that during the screenwriting process, they're like, wait a second, we're on page 58. We didn't explain that thing that happened on page 22. Okay, we'll put a couple of lines in here. And they get to, page 103, and they're like, but we didn't explain the thing that happened on page 52, so we'll put a few more lines in here without connecting anything. In an organic way, it's all exposition and not characterization. So yeah, I think simplifying that ending would have made it more, made me feel something. That last shot where we've just got Ellen, underneath the crumpled twig leg remains of Count Orlok. I'm like, why is this the last shot of the movie? It's not stirring. It's just kind of gross. And on top of that, the one bit where I felt, and this is just me bringing my own baggage into it because I'm a huge Trauma fan, but the scene where Ellen, she's in her full glory, laying back, and then Orlok comes and mounts her, and then they do the deed. His back was so like crumpled paper mache. It reminded me of the love scene from The Toxic Avenger. It was the exact same texture.
Okay.
It's like I was, all it was missing was the pink tutu with the toxic acid on it. And
I was flashing back to like the old people having sex scene in South Park.
Oof.
And it was one stands there like grandpa
X.
meets like
The old woman in X.
Yeah.
That's where I need Oldman, man. I need some nipple sucking. I need some Oldman,
Get Monica Bellucci coming out from under the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn, Santa. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
it's cold up here in the North Pole. You got to heat up where you can.
If you read those letters, Santa spells Satan.
Yeah. See?
Dirty Santa over here.
This is Santa
Pull up
Claus
your
right
ass.
now. Someone's definitely getting on the naughty list, and
And I am
like
not eating any of the candy canes that you left me because I don't know where they've been. Anyway, well, this has been a very spirited panel, and I understand that my opinions are not, they go against the grain, and rightfully so, and that's great. And I appreciate you all indulging me with my weird theories and prejudices, especially when it comes to Lily Rose Depp, who I think did a better job in that Kevin Smith movie where she was like the female version of Clerks than this. But yeah, so we're left with another vampire movie, and we're closing out 2024 with those who've seen The Last Voyage of the Demeter as a film, not taking out production design, atmosphere, and everything, but just as a movie, as a story, which is better? Which would you recommend to people if you had to make a choice? That or Nosferatu 2024?
Nosferatu, because it's still at least memorable. That movie, it didn't really leave much of it. The only thing I remember was that tacked on ending with Van Helsing. Whoops, spoiled it.
No, you didn't. You saved people a lot of time.
Yeah.
Nosferatu 2024, because as I said regarding the Voyage of the Demeter, I liked it better when it was Alien 3.
Good point. All right. Any other takers?
I like Voyage of the Demeter because I think they were trapped on that ship, and that was scary. Where do you go when you're trapped like that? I mean, I think this one was so pretty that, it's got great production values and a number of Oscar potential qualities, but they're all technical. None of them are about the story or I think this will be forgotten in 10 years, if not sooner, because I think it's going to be, there's a lot of movies like this that look pretty and they don't have good scripts, and you forget them because they don't have good scripts.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, you can say the same thing about Kraven the Hunter. No, you can't. Sorry. Anyhow, I'm honestly split because, Jeff, I was going to say Nosferatu, strangely enough, but you reminded me of the isolation of Last Voyage of the Demeter and how, I really did feel like I was stuck on that ship with those people, and that's more than I can say here. I felt like I just catch the next boat out of town, I'll be fine.
go to Paris for a couple of weeks. But you know what? I hear the Rats are actually going to Paris to open up a restaurant, so maybe that wasn't a good idea.
Oh, they make a mean stew.
Now, Ian, do you think if they hypothetically did a re-release of The Last Voyage of Demeter based on the hype around Nosferatu, do you think that it would bring people back into theaters? Or do you think it would receive the same underrepresentation at the box office and fall kind of to like a B-tier horror, people not paying attention to it because there's not a major cast and a major director behind the production?
That's a great question. I kind of think that, I don't know that we can answer that question until we see how Nosferatu does. Yeah, because I feel like if it's a monster hit, no pun intended, then someone could say, well, here's another kind of vampire movie that's inspired by this, or kind of a companion piece to it. But if this comes out and it flops, which, I mean, we've got the Bob Dylan movie opening the same day, and I think there's something else that's kind of competing with it. Remember when Christmas movies used to come around Christmas?
Lighter fare.
See Red One.
Really
you're gonna go see Sonic the Hedgehog, and you're gonna like it.
I have not seen.
Nosferatu is a Christmas movie because it is set on Christmas.
That is true. We're gonna spark this debate. It's not even a debate. Katie just declared it as fact. So
I will back her, of course. Come on.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of red in it. Yes.
It does. The two constitutions of a Christmas movie are being winterish and having a lot of red.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Lily Rose Depp surely does a lot of rocking back and forth. So I guess that's rocking around the Christmas tree and happy holiday. But no, so that's a great question, Annie. I don't know how to answer that, and maybe we'll find out. Oh, I will say this also has another connection to a movie that came out like 25 years ago, called Shadow of the Vampire, which was about the making of Nosferatu with Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck. But it was like, what if the making of that movie involved Max Schreck as an actual vampire? I don't remember liking it that much, but maybe it deserves a rewatch. Or maybe not, because as I said, I'm kind of sick of vampire movies. Damn it. Anyway, thank you, everybody. This has been fun. But we're gonna close out the year. I am Ian Simmons again of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the buzzed in front, aka the blonde in front. Mike Crowley, if you'll probably agree, Annie Banks of the Mary Sue, and we got this covered. Jeff York of the Establishing Shot and Pipeline Artists, and of course, and the show goes on.
Plug it.
Wonderful
Plug it.
illustrations, yes, sir.
There's
Link will be down below. Yes. I don't know if that's a stocking stuffer. That thing is that's massive. You gotta have like
how big are your socks? You know, body shaming socks and stockings now. What's going on?
No, only QR.
Do they make Magnum stockings? Anyway, and also we have Santa Critic.
Hey.
Santa, thank you for dropping by. I feel like we're truly blessed to have you on our panel, especially because we're learning just how filthy you are.
Oh yes, absolutely.
But also give our love to the Shanahans.
I will. I'll let them know.
Thank
Go to bed, kids.
I was gonna say, like, do they know you're in the basement right now?
Yeah, they know.
I
I'm
thought
in
you
the
would be back
basement.
to the North Pole.
Santa, you give new meaning to the term North Pole.
Oh, take a look at my South Pole, Jeff. You know, good times.
Wow. Okay. So anyway, thank you everybody for this family wholesome show. This has been Earth's Mightiest Critics review of not Nosferatu. I can't say it, Nosferatu. I can't even make a pun out of it. But yeah, we'll be back next year with a slew of, I'm sure, January roundtables about the top quality films coming out in 2025. And thanks for a wonderful year. We've had a lot of great shows, great engagement, and
Thank you, Ian.
I was worried that movies were kind of dead, but they are roaring back to life. I found out this morning that there's going to be a Naked Gun remake starring Liam Neeson next fall. So if nothing
Pamela
else,
Anderson.
Yes. So lots to look forward to in the new year. And thanks everybody out there watching, participating on the panel. Love you all. Until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you and take care. And happy holidays, because we got the New Year's coming up and all that.
Happy New Year.
Yes. All right.
See you in 2025.